Live from the incredible Skylofts here at MGM Grand, it's 2/23/22. Somehow I missed 2/2/2/2/2/2. Oh boy, let's get this show started.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone around the world watching us today on No Vacancy Live. I'm Glenn Hausman. Today, Anthony's on location. As they say in the business, he's on assignment or doing something like that. So you got me alone today. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad, but it is what it is. I'm loving being here in Las Vegas. I've had such a great week. And I'll tell you guys, last night I was out and about, and now that mask mandate is dropped, everything feels great around here. Plus, the city is packed. It's got the spirit and it's got the energy as we had pre-pandemic in that brief little time in the spring and early summer when we were mask-free as well. So it's really terrific to see everything coming back together. I'm feeling like finally, maybe we are past this. I don't know what COVID has planned for us, but I think all of us can say we are done with you, COVID, and we're starting to move on, and the evidence abounds here every single day in Las Vegas. But don't take my word for it. Don't take Las Vegas's word for it. We're going to take a look around the country and around the world to see how one management company is doing today, what they see, what their growth expectations are, and kind of bring a little bit more clarity since we are at a major inflection point right now. And that's why I got with us Mr. Rob Smith of Aimbridge Hospitality. Rob, great to see you, sir.
Glenn, great to be on again. Thanks for having me.
This is great, man. That's you're looking like you're in somewhere fun today. Where are you coming at us from?
Today I am in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm in the French Quarter in a new hotel for us. We've had it for about 8 months. It's called the Saint. We have several assets here in Charleston, and like you indicated, there's not a mask to be seen. People are having fun and doing tours, and actually all 5 of our hotels in market are sold out tonight. So great time.
Well, hold on a second. All 5 of your hotels are sold out?
Actually, our Renaissance is a few rooms oversold. So we got our fingers crossed there. But yeah, everybody's sold out. It's things in Charleston are back.
Wow. So now the last time you were on the show was back in June of 2021. And that was a time where I thought we were having the conversation we are having right now, right? So it's kind of like you guys were building back up. You were excited. And then it felt as if the rug was pulled back under from you once mandates started to fall back into place in midsummer. Is that an accurate assessment of what you were going through then? And how have things changed coming into today towards the end of February?
Glenn, it really didn't change midsummer. We had a great summer in most areas. Of course, it's market specific.
And you're talking more non-urban core group business hotels, right?
Well, actually, Glenn, across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, our resorts had a rockin' summer, pretty good fall.
That makes me happy to hear, dude.
Our urban centers still did not have midweek. I mean, I want to be clear. We expected business transient to come back in September. Remember, that was the big deal. Everybody's going to have the offices come back in September. Business transient is going to back. That didn't happen. We're still doing only about 6% of our business in business transient.
What was it in like 2019, for example?
It was 18 to 22. So
now
it's a bit.
Yeah, it's rough. You've been able to supplement some of that with the people staying domestically and traveling as much, but you can't fully bring back that particular type of number, right?
You're right. And it's very day specific. I mean, that business transient's what we count on to get us through the week. And we haven't seen that come back. Now, one really green shoot that we did see is we had a lot of group in October, and we were wondering how it was going to turn out with rooming lists. And we had a fantastic group month in October. Our market segmentation was 17-18%, especially in our group and corporate properties. And November wasn't a bad group month either. Where we really got the carpet pulled out from under us was in mid to late December with Omicron. And we had a really rough January. January, what we had on the books was looking promising, and it dropped as much as 25%. We had $14 million of group cancellations in our group hotels. Now, the good news is, and the interesting news is that group business we were surprised because we knew it would move. They didn't just cancel it.
Mhm,
95% of it, they said, let's move it to a date,
mhm.
a little further down the road. And the interesting part is they moved it to like the first week of February, the second week of February. So
Wow.
I think people anticipated that, this was going to be a short-term thing, and it looks like they're right. But
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
Yeah,
most of
please
our group
continue.
rebooked, and no, I was just saying most of our group rebooked, and most of it booked, between February and April. So it seems like in February transient is back above October, November rates. We still don't see business transient back, but I think that's going to be market specific, and it's going to be when people start opening their office buildings.
That's yeah, and that's going to be a really important thing. And I see, Daniel, you've got a great question. We'll bring that up in a minute. But as you're waiting for things to open, do you think things are going to open in the same sort of way? Because now people have gotten used to being at home, and we've talked about this very frequently on the show, just not with you. How do you think this great reset of the way the average American office worker is going to kind of affect your strategy going forward?
Yeah, we do think it's going to change, Glenn.
Hmm.
There's no doubt. The optimistic view that we have is that the positions that it's going to change in are really non-customer contact positions.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, sales is face to face. You can
Yeah.
do all this Zoom you want. As soon as your competitors start traveling and talking to your clients,
Yeah,
you're
that's
going to
right.
need to do it, or you're going to fall behind. So,
Dude, I'm already hearing
maybe.
stories like that. It's like, and it's weird, Rob, because we saw this happen with every other recession. Everyone always says business travel is never going to come back, blah, blah, blah. But it always comes back because if I'm not in front of that potential customer's face, again, like you said, somebody else will, and I've got to get there first.
Yeah, I think the only area that we're concerned about, we're not waving the white flag yet, but the only area we're concerned about is a lot of the training segments because people have really gotten used to doing training
Yes,
online. I don't think it's as effective
it's not.
as human contact training. And I think I see my had a great example for my youngest daughter who ingeniously at 12 years old created a loop so it looked like she was in front of her computer
Right.
instead of doing the actual schooling. So I don't
Mhm.
think that there's nothing better than face-to-face training and face-to-face testing to be effective. But I think
Right.
that's going to be a lag indicator, and that could go on for a while, where either because of COVID, but I think more importantly, giving companies a chance to catch up financially, I think
Yes.
that business will be delayed.
Yeah, I agree. So Daniel is saying, hey, love having you back on the show. Dealing with
Thank
staffing
you.
issues. Now, while you tee up your answer, I'll tell you here in Las Vegas, I'm hearing that staffing is much more robust than it was even just a couple of months ago. And while people are still shifting around from place to place, there seems to be a larger pool of people interested in getting back to work in venues such as this. How is it happening at Aimbridge?
I'm not as optimistic on the staffing side.
Yeah,
We
understood.
are having staffing issues in several positions across the board. What
Hmm.
does give me optimism
Yeah.
is there's a lot of young people that are joining our industry that were in other industries like fast food and
Mhm.
supermarket industries and things like that, and they're really excited about hospitality and the potential for a career. And while it's taking additional training to get those folks up to speed,
Mhm.
the attitudes and the energy. I was in a lineup this morning at the Renaissance, and the staff there is fairly young and new, but all excited. And their service scores were at like 76, which is crazy in the
Yeah.
Marriott system. And it's all a bunch of young folks that are joining our industry. So every downturn has a silver lining, and I think it's
Yes.
gonna we're going to attract and pay to get a whole new generation into our business, and not that the other generation's not important. I think a lot of those folks repurposed decisions in their lives and the way they
Yep.
wanted to live because our business isn't easy.
Nope.
It's a full-time job. Um, so long term, I feel okay, but right now, anybody that tells you that staffing's back to normal, it's not.
No, it definitely is, and we are really seeing this reset in life, which has to get you to rethink about how you're doing operations. But when it comes to that silver lining, we were talking about a little bit decline in that transient business traveler, but now that people are more empowered to travel and mix the leisure and business, and no, guys, I'm not going to say that B word. I have banned it here on No Vacancy Live, but there must be some silver lining opportunities now for you to reach out to those people and fill some of those weekday nights with folks that want to work and play while they're in great cities like you're in right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a new market segment. People
Yeah.
that have to travel for business are tacking days on either side because they haven't traveled. They want to get out. They're bringing spouses and significant others, and it definitely is a new market segment that's filling Sunday, Thursday nights, and in some cases weekends. But we haven't, the weekend area is the one area we don't need the business. So weekends have been just great. It's where we're dying is Sunday, Thursday, and in a lot of cases Tuesday, Wednesday, where we really need that business traveler to come back.
Yeah, it's really cuckoo how everything is kind of flip-flopped, right? It's like suddenly you're trying to fill Wednesdays and Thursdays when that might not have been a problem before. How does that reorient you as an operations leader in your role as EVP of Operations with Aimbridge Hospitality?
Well, during the pandemic, Glenn, even we were already heading in that trajectory, but e-marketing has just become everything. When you're looking to fish for 90% transient business, you got to market to them. And owners have really been open to those investments and ensuring that we're in that space correctly. And I don't think it goes away. I think even the sales team of the future is going to have an e-marketing component that even takes up a different structure in the number of bodies that are in that sales team. So, I don't know how long this transient business is going to last. I don't see, we kept saying in the summer, will it go into the fall?
Yeah.
It's been into the fall like crazy. You see it in Vegas, right? So, and people are, you've heard the concept of revenge travel. I don't know who coined that first, but
I don't know. They need a new name for it. I don't like it. Why are you taking revenge on travel? Travel is a nice thing. It's good to me.
I don't think it's revenge. I think what it is I think what they're saying, I've experienced it myself. We haven't traveled. I'm going on a trip. I want the suite. I want the best package. I'm going to take a limo from the airport. There's just people that have, pent up demand. They haven't spent their money in a while and they want to live better.
Yeah, they absolutely do. So Rob, then that reframes how you're thinking, because now you have this opportunity not just to get people in the rooms on days that used to be soft, but now you might be able to get them to pay a premium, and not just by charging more for your rooms, but really getting them engaged in what's going on in the property and getting them to spend a lot more dollars per person than they would have back maybe in 2019.
No, absolutely. And they're definitely spending more money for the room. Food and beverage isn't quite there yet. Banquets and catering is probably going to be the last thing that comes back.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's although the groups that we have are Roger, or our revenue per available group room, is up 30%. So the groups that we are getting they're also spending. And I agree with you. Revenge travel needs a better word.
I know.
But it is. It's people are traveling with a vengeance.
That's great.
Yeah, we have to take advantage of it. You're right, because it's gone, unfortunately, for the customer, are the days where I'm just going to give away every upgrade because people want to buy it before they get there.
Yeah, which is absolutely unbelievable with how much has changed so quickly. You think that this is something that customers are going to stick with for a while, saying, I deserve the best for me? Or is that something that could potentially fade over time as everything stabilizes in society and we get back to what people would call normal, even though I don't think there is ever been such a thing as normal?
Yeah. I'm kind of a history buff, Glenn.
Yeah.
And I looked back at, the major pandemic, the Spanish flu of the 1918, and the roaring 20s lasted for 8 years? I mean, and people, it was the same thing. People were sick of being stuck at home, and they spent money and they bought clothes and they did crazy things. I hope so. I hope we see the same thing, unless there's economic factors that don't allow that.
Listen, there's fate there, because the famous dance, the Charleston, was from that era of time, and look at where you are. So
you're right, my friend.
Dude, the stars are aligning here for an amazing 2020s. It's really funny that we're going to have the roaring 20s yet again, in my opinion. Now, Rob, we had on a few weeks ago, we had on Dr. Primus, and he's like the New York City hotel doctor. The celebrities call him, they bring him in when people are sick. And in March of 2020, he was the first guest we had. We did a special live show addressing what is this COVID thing? What is really going to happen? And he's been right on target the whole time. Now he's saying spring and summer are going to be the best we ever had. And that's because he's coming from a medical perspective. How are you seeing it from a actual reservations type of perspective and general consensus out there in the market on where you think you're going to be getting to?
I'm cautious when I approach it because, like you said, last summer we were
we got scared,
high-fiving each other, thinking things are getting better. And I think I told you pre-show that I myself got COVID at Alice, but it was something that came and went pretty quickly. And I read a stat yesterday that 70% of the U.S. population got Omicron. So, and actually, the doctors that we talk to that come to our panel say it's the best thing that could have happened because it sort of pushed us into that herd mentality. So, I think everybody just wants to make sure there's no other COVID variant shoe to drop. But all we're hearing is optimistic. And what makes me really excited is when you see the governments who are the most cautious of all dropping all these mandates. When Chicago drops mandates, you're kind of looking at the light, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to see the rest of the jurisdictions do that. I was up in Seattle and I was at a brew pub, and they are still very, very rigid. I was standing a foot too far away from a table drinking a beer, and I got yelled at for not wearing my mask because I had to be right at that table. So I'm looking forward to those days being over. I didn't realize that being 1 foot in another direction, I could be highly contagious compared to being a foot in the other direction.
Well, I live in Texas, and we never really recognized the pandemic. But when I had COVID a few weeks ago, I was already 6 days into it. The CDC said I was safe, and I went out to get some juice or something, and I wore a mask to be safe. And a Texan came up to me and said, "Why are you wearing a mask?" And I said, "I have COVID." And he was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah,
So
right.
I think we got to be respectful of those that are going to still want to be safe, but at the same time, also be respectful of those that are ready to get on with their lives and get our economy moving. So
I absolutely agree. And the economy moving is the most essential part. We really have to get back to doing things the way they have been. So when you think about that economy growing, you guys are the largest, hospitality management company that there is. How many properties are you doing right now? Because it changes so often.
You got me, Glenn? Okay, great.
Yeah, I got you now. How many properties?
We currently have about 1,600 hotel management agreements. We have about 1,500 current operating properties. We've got 50 new builds in the pipeline, and we recently acquired a couple companies to further our growth. So we're moving. I mean, it's our closest competitor is a fraction of that. And we're excited about that. We're not just because of the sheer size. I mean, it's not that, we think that we'll become the best by being the biggest. We want to be the best because we're the best operator. But we certainly want to take advantage of that scale in any area we can to maximize returns for our owners and make us more sticky, not only to our current owners, but as assets trade that we're able to stay in and relink them. So, I can give you a lot of examples of scale, but there's. Yeah. I joined Aimbridge. We had 62 hotels, so it kind of crazy for me, and most of it was select service. So, and it was hard to get people.
Hotels was already bigger than the majority of management companies out there, if not nearly all of them, right?
Yeah, and it was hard to get people to come work for us, and now we've got an incredible bench, and we're able to really grow people's careers through the different verticals that we operate. And I operate the luxury resort and full service group, full service corporate verticals. Mm-hmm. And, it's just great to watch people. When I started the business, I was told, you have to move without question all over the place to get ahead.
Right.
And I moved to 5 states and 4 countries during my life. But now we have 61 hotels in Dallas, so people can have their whole career without ever changing their address. So it's exciting.
Yeah, that is pretty exciting for them. But you got to assume that being the largest is a little bit of a double-edged sword. There's a lot of advantages, but you also have to come over a perception that you're too large. You're not going to be able to pay me, the guy that you're not going to pay enough attention to me, the guy that only owns 1 or 2 hotels. What do you say to when you're coming against that objection when trying to make a new deal?
Yeah, Glenn, and our competitors are selling against us that way. And
That's right.
when
I would too,
when
man.
I
I would
first
too.
started, yeah, I understand. Yeah, when I
Yeah.
first started, they said we were too small, and then they said we're growing too fast. Now they say we're too big. But what I would tell them is
Yeah.
we are a big company. We're, as you said, 1,500. I oversee about 200 plus, maybe closer to 250
Yeah.
properties within the full service resort and luxury vertical. So I'm able to run my company
Yeah.
as a small group of expertise
Ah,
hoteliers, but yet
fascinating.
access the
Yeah.
larger company for all the things that we need, like scale. I mean, we just our purchasing power. We save our owners anywhere from 7 to 13% in pure purchasing. And that's goods. That's also insurance. That's workers' comp. I mean, it's real data that you can see.
Right.
It's not something that's a talking point that I'm saying. We could show it, and that's we still have to be experts, and we have to run our properties, and we have to be profitable and make sure that we're executing on the business investments. But those are things that just give us table stakes to enter the
Right.
game ahead of our competitor.
Yeah, I like what you were saying about how it's basically you run your own division, which is basically a company in of itself, and then you could tap into larger resources at will. I think that helps bring it down to numbers that allow you to pay the right amount of attention to each of those properties that you need to, without getting caught up in all of the other stuff. But one of the most interesting things is you guys work with a whole panoply of brands. So you're able to grab little bits of insights and see what works and what doesn't work, and then probably apply those strategies in a meaningful way across the entire company.
That's probably one of the greatest parts of not only my job, but all of the vice president's job is, in a normal GM's career. I was a GM
Right.
for 20 years, I think, something like that. You get to work at maybe 4 or 5 hotels if you're consistent in what you do,
Hmm.
and you don't really get to learn from the kind of properties. It's not just about us going out and telling our hotels what to do. I
Right.
learn so many things every time I visit a new hotel. I get
Right.
the best ideas that we get and we're able to bring to the next hotel are things that we learn from smart operators. We talked on the last show how important the general manager is, and
Hmm.
having a great general manager is all the difference. So we that's the number one thing we do, is making sure we have the right people in place. But you're right, being able to take that economy of scale and duplicate the things that work are, talk about staffing. We were in a hotel, and the general manager had reached out, and I'm going to give away some of our trade secrets,
Yep.
but he reached out to couldn't find housekeepers, so he reached out to a company that cleans office buildings
Right.
and said, "Listen, I know you
Oh,
guys are busy midweek, and
right.
your people have the weekends off. Can I employ your people on the weekends, because that's when I'm dead?"
Yeah.
And it was just a smart way to approach something. So we immediately replicated that through the company, and just was another way for us to find folks that were eager to get the job done. So there's 100 zillion examples like that. So thanks for pointing that
Yeah.
out.
No, I really love that about being able to crowdsource great solutions, right? All kind of partnering together for the greater good and figuring things out. And I think so far, what we've told with this story is you're adapting very nicely as people change their travel habits, while still giving young people an amazing opportunity to build their careers first at the property level, and they're going throughout the system because you have so many responsibilities and roles above and beyond the property level, should that individual want to seek a long-term career path. Plus, we've learned a lot about how ownership can rely on you being a larger company and tap into those resources as needed, and be able to move forward in that sort of way. So what are you thinking then going forward in the future are the biggest opportunities that we have in the hospitality industry as general, and maybe 1 or 2 of those challenges that you're keeping your eye on as we go forward?
I still think, as I said in the beginning, the
Hmm.
greatest challenge and opportunity at least in the year 2022,
Yep.
is going to be getting the right people in the right
People.
places on the property, and mostly I'm talking about folks that clean rooms, work at the front
Yep.
desk, do food and beverage, and we get them trained properly so that as we get these people and then also making sure that they have a vision as to what it could be if they stick with it and where they can go. I mean,
Mhm.
most of us started in the hotel business and worked our way through the ranks in different avenues. And they need to see that inspiration and see how other
Yeah.
people have grown to know what the ability is for them. So I think in the short term, staffing is going to be our biggest issue. I think in the long term, it's just going to be um, how quickly the group segment gets back to more than just rooms and gets back to large food and beverage events and
Right.
large scale meetings. And then lastly, helping our owners. During this time period, owners really suffered. I mean,
Yeah.
the hotels didn't see this coming, came out of a pretty strong couple of years prior to 20 as far as pricing of the properties and debt, and they went through a good 2.5 years of having to carry their properties. They did get some things like forbearance and PPP loans, and all that stuff's dried up now, and in many cases they used reserves that were set aside for property improvement plans. So the next 24 months is really going to be getting those property improvement plans back up and running at a time that
Right.
inflation's crazy and supply chains are difficult. And those are going to be some of the challenges that face us, is not just resting on the fact that our properties may go through a longer aging period before we
Yeah.
go through a refresh period, because the brands are back in the stage where they're not going to allow that, and we should.
I was gonna just say that next.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it up, because that's kind of tough, because you're kind of there in the middle trying to help your owners be successful and try to mitigate the effect that the brands have when it comes to being financially deleterious for your owners over there. But there's always a push pull. The brands were pretty good coming right out of the gate when this crisis began, but in order to protect the overall brand, they could very quickly have gotten back into a situation where they need the properties to be in the best position as possible. Otherwise, they're going to lose that business to those newer, prettier, recently built properties that are out there. So obviously, each individual property is a different case. But overall, do you feel that your owners out there are finally getting to a position where these PIPs are not going to be horrifically onerous on them, or are there still going to be a lot of pockets of a challenge for them to get it up? And I'm not talking about time frame issues, because you should be ordering your stuff 6 months in advance at this point.
Yeah, exactly. No, first of all, the brands are being, in my opinion, really smart and
Awesome.
strategic. They're
Hmm.
they're approaching it with the hotels that are getting the worst service scores first. They're
Right.
saying, okay, listen, we've given you some time off, and we know that there's some things we've deferred, but our guests are telling us they're not happy here.
Yeah.
So you've got to fix that. Part of that is making sure that we have staffing and service, but part of it is product and making sure that we have that set up. So, I think our goal as Aimbridge is to make sure that the PIPs in the short term are focused on real ROI projects for our owners. So we're not
Right.
asking them to put money into something that is not going to be guest facing enough that we
Right.
can't charge for it and we can't get a premium, uh, and reward those owners that put the money back into the
Right.
products, because you got to face it, Glenn. They're doubling down now at this
Yeah.
point, right? It's they've got to take a stretch of faith that things really are going to get back to normal, and like you said, they've got to commit money, time, and effort now that may not start bearing fruit for 6 months, and who
Yeah.
knows what we're going to look like in 6 months. So
Wow. I'm going to say right here, it's going to be the best year ever in hospitality. If I'm correct, you guys can pull this quote from me and run it all year long. If not, then let's just pretend this never happened. But Rob, you talked about investing money in guest facing stuff, but at the same time, technology is demanding to be paid attention to. So how are you advising your owners to balance between investing some money in technology that guests may not necessarily realize is there to help them and make their stays better versus those things that they could actually see, touch, and taste.
Basic technology is table stakes now. If people
Yeah,
don't
right.
have good internet, that's table stakes.
Mhm.
It's and owners know it.
Mhm.
Owners are they didn't get to be an owner by not
Right.
being savvy, and they
Yeah.
know we've got to have good internet. We've got to have a good entertainment package. I think you're referring to technology that starts making the stay that much
I am.
easier, whether it's
I am.
voice recognition in the room or and I think there needs to be an ROI on that too. I mean, we have
Yeah.
to. I don't think there'll ever be a time when there's not people in hospitality, but we have to think, where we are having trouble finding folks. What can we
Mhm.
do to invest in technology to make the people that work for us jobs easier, and also to make jobs that are less desirable in some way fulfilled from
Right.
technology. I mean, they now have a many years ago we got a Roomba for the house, but now they have this like huge Roomba that cleans the banquet carpets
Mhm.
and does a fantastic job. It does it
Yeah.
overnight while everybody's sleeping. There's a lot of things like that I think owners are wide open to hearing about because one of the things that happened during the pandemic, Glenn, is we came into a new operating model.
Right.
Whether it's a good operating model, a bad operating model, it is a new operating model, and it enabled us to protect income when there wasn't very much revenue. And
Right.
nobody wants to just say, okay, let's just go back to the old way of doing things. Let's be smart and see how we can approach things so that we're smart and we know that life is different. And if we can get a big vacuum that vacuums the ballroom while everybody sleeps, why wouldn't we do it?
Plus, it saves you on the labor costs for that individual, and vacuuming, I think, happens to be the number 1 or 2 place of workplace injuries for hoteliers
Yeah.
over there. So that simple move winds up having a cascade effect that really can save the company a lot of money down the line.
Yeah, I mean, even kiosks. You know, uh, when I first started getting the airport kiosk, and I may date myself, I was reluctant to use it.
Of
I
course.
was so used to going to the desk. I didn't, I was afraid I would miss my upgrade or whatever. But
Mhm.
now I don't ever go to the desk. So
Right.
I don't know that kiosks. We tried kiosks several years ago, and they didn't
Remember the first
take
go
hold.
around in the late 1990s, Rob? That was
Yeah,
going to be the
yeah.
panacea then, and those things fizzled out pretty quick.
Yeah. So, although now I'm seeing them in some hotels again,
Yeah.
some people
They're here
are
to stay
using
this
them,
time.
and maybe it's that, yeah, maybe the millennial doesn't want to interact, and that's the other thing is we have a whole new customer base that is coming up, and we got to listen to them
Right.
and
And
make sure that we're responding to what they want.
yeah, and I got to say, it's not just millennials. I think younger people have the tendency to visibly drive a newer technology, and they're earlier adopters in that technology. But as the way younger generations goes, older generations do follow. For goodness sake, my mom finally texts me, and she's on Facebook, for example, and that sort of a thing. So I think the issue is after you get to 40, you don't want to kind of learn new technologies as much, right? So you just kind of push it off, but then you wind up adopting and adapting that particular type of technology. I love check-in kiosks a lot of the situations, particularly if I'm in in a market such as Las Vegas, where there's such long lines at times. I'd love to be able to skip the line, but at the same time, it allows you as an operator to take that individual and maybe repurpose them to something that's going to have more meaningful interactions with the customers than just being facilitating, giving them a room key and taking a credit card, right?
Yeah, the success of the kiosk is going to be the phone, right? It's not going to
Mhm.
be the kiosk. It's going to be when people finally are comfortable using their phone to check in. And I think right now we're only at like 10% or 11%
Right.
of people that are using that keyless entry. And it's mostly brand loyalists that know that they're going to get the right room without having a human interaction.
Right.
So that's where it'll get to is when we finally can do it on our handheld devices.
That's awesome. Rob, anything else that you want to mention today?
No, I mean, it's great to be back. I mean, I think the other thing we didn't talk too much about
Yep.
is some of the company growth. I mean, you may have noticed
Yeah. So let's
in the
let's talk about
last
that. I
year.
mean, yeah, you were at 1600, right? So tell me about the growth and where you're going to go.
Well, one of the exciting things we did last year is we acquired a company called Grupo Pisma in
Hmm.
Mexico, and they have 47 hotels, really nice stuff. JW in Guadalajara, JW in Monterey, a Lofts, and some nice, really nice asset in Tulum. But
Right.
we really went after that not just for Mexico, but for the expertise in that region, and be able to use that as a Latin America Caribbean hub to
Interesting.
really grow Aimbridge. We're already in 32 countries and got a pretty good foothold in Europe. But we have got a pretty good foothold in the Caribbean, but not really in Latin America. So we're excited about that growth push.
So let me just
Um,
let's just tease that a little bit and pull it out a little bit so people could fully understand what you mean by that. I think what you mean by that is by having those boots on the ground that understand those localities, they're better plugged in, they better understand the culture, and those individuals might be able to make much quicker forward progress than some other folks on your team that might come from places like you are in Texas. Is that
Well, it
correct?
goes both ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
How
it
so?
goes both ways because the investors in those hotels were also excited
Right.
about the partnership with Aimbridge and what the
Mhm.
American connection can do to
Right.
help their investments down there. So it kind of creates the best of both worlds, where obviously the folks in Prisma understand the culture and the investment strategies and what they want to grow and how they want to grow. And here they get that connection with a whole different customer base in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we've been together I think for almost a year now, and it's been
Wow.
really a great partnership and a great way to grow that region. We also just acquired a company called Prism, and we're operating
Yeah.
that as a solely owned operator. They're going to
Mhm.
kind of stay in place and run status quo, but they're a great group. We're learning a lot from them,
Cool.
and that's one of the things about Aimbridge is we're just I kind of liken us to the United States. We're a group of people that come from all different backgrounds,
Mhm.
where all the best parts of our individual DNAs kind of rise up and become one group of people. You look at examples across the board. We have a vice president of HR that was a housekeeping manager in a hotel we took over. We've got, if you look at our corporate office, it's not just folks from Aimbridge, it's folks from
Right.
Aimbridge, Interstate,
Yeah.
just all the different companies that came together. So, I when our competitors talk about us being too large, I think it's an advantage that it's kind of like the only thing they could say about us at this stage,
Yeah.
because all we're hitting on all other cylinders, right?
Yeah,
So you got to
for
say
sure.
something. So
So, Rob,
yeah.
how do you handle that culture issue then of bringing in all of these folks from different companies to make sure that, you don't have little pockets of different culture throughout your entire organization? And I would think if I was at a property and I heard that the company I work for was bought, I would be a little bit nervous. So, how do you ameliorate the fear while getting them inculcated in the Ambridge culture?
It's a great question. We went into a think tank process as we merged with Interstate
Yeah.
and the other companies we had already kind of brought into the fold, and recreated, what our corporate culture and what we wanted to
Mhm.
stand for.
Yeah.
And what we do is when we assimilate other companies, first of all, we look for companies that really already have a lot of the elements that are already representative within our culture. But then
Right.
we embrace that's outside.
Mhm.
It's not that we say, okay, you're now part of Ambridge, get indoctrinated into our culture. We embrace it. Once again, I liken it to the United States. We as new people come in, we embrace their cultures and we embrace what's good about them and how they can make our country better. And that's the same thing we do at Ambridge. We
Beautiful.
embrace what they bring to the table and how they can make us a better operator. Like you said earlier,
Mhm.
the beauty of being a big company, there's so many things that go with scale. Probably the biggest thing is just learning from so many different hotel operators the best way to do things,
Yeah.
and then replicating it and making sure that we're staying ahead of the curve and the new things. And I think one of the biggest mistakes hoteliers make, and you and I are both old enough to say this,
Mhm.
is a lot of old folks get stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
And oh no, we don't want to do it that way.
Yep.
Well, think of all the changes that have happened in our company, so in our business, our industry.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
So
it's such a weird phenomenon where people get so rigid. They're like, well, we've always done it this way, therefore it must be the way to continue to do things. But I mean, if you just look at, I said earlier, I don't believe there's such thing as normal. It's fluid. What's normal today slightly changes, and it may be imperceptible, but over time, things are always changing. So you have to change your systems and the way that you do things in order to address the needs of today and what you see emerging in the future. And I worry that people who get so rigid that they stick with what they do, that'll be the death knell for them. So I'm glad that you're finding good partners who understand the importance of continual change and rethinking what they're doing every single day.
Yeah, our industry, I believe, partially because of COVID and inflation and so many other things, it's going to change a lot in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
And it's really things that we need to be on the forefront and be ready to embrace that change and remember that we're not dictating to the customer how they're going to do business with us. They're dictating it to us. Models like Uber, tell that story, right? We wanted to dictate to the customer how things are done, and they said, no, I want to be able to touch a button on my phone and have somebody pick me up and not have to pay.
Yep.
And it all be done electronically, and it changed the way transportation was. I think you're going to see some of that in our business, and we need to make sure that we don't stick our head in the sand, that we find ways to embrace that and be part of that.
Yeah, I love it. Any final words, Rob?
No, just great to see you again. Sorry I missed Anthony. Not so sorry because he was rough on me last time. So
yeah, I know. Well, I love that you came back here in the gauntlet and are also relieved that he wasn't here today. So thank you so much, Rob Smith, EVP of Operations with Aimbridge Hospitality. Let me just
enjoy
thank you so
Vegas.
Much. I will
enjoy Vegas. Make sure if you go down to the blackjack table, you don't split kings. Okay, it's a bad idea.
All right, I will. What about splitting twos? Should I do that?
No, don't split twos. Ace and aces.
Oh, you're not going to believe this. I put $20 into a Conan the Barbarian slot machine and 2 75-cent bets. I wound up winning $150. So
nice.
I'm feeling like a big player over here today. So
all right,
very exciting. Usually I win big sums like 12 cents. 16 cents. So this is a big deal for me, Rob. Rob, thank you so much. And I will hope to get you back here in another few months. See you later. Take care.
Have a great day, Glenn.
You too. All right, buddy. Thank you so much for joining. What a great show he is. He is such an awesome dude. And I think I learned a lot from him today and also helped us rethink through some of the things we were doing while also emphasizing that some of the things that we're doing at our properties around the world are the way to do things. Now, remember, you can't watch every episode, so why not listen to us? Find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, lo and behold, wherever you like to listen to your shows. Well, that's where we are. If you want to reach out to Anthony, he's at Anthony Hotels. I'm Traveling Glenn. Thanks so much for being here. And remember, guys, you've got one life, so blaze on and be kind to yourself. And we'll see you tomorrow live from Resorts World with another great interview. Take care.